What was your fuck it, I'm done moment? My boss waited until the week before a proposal was due to start on it. She had received it 2 months prior, and at that point I offered to help and received no response from her. Then, the week before the due date, she comes to me in a panic asking for my help. This was the 3rd time she had done this shit to me. I forward her all of my research and files and stay late every night helping to put it together. Reviewing the final draft of said proposal, my research is 80% of the content and I am not listed on the team. Fuck it, I'm done. Accepted another job offer 2 days later, haven't looked back since. Edit, she owned the company, so there was no going to her superiors. Also, justice/karma, another employee quit the same day as I did. It was a small company and almost put her out of business. Hopefully it was a wake-up call. In situations like these I really wish it was acceptable to just walk in a meeting and yell out, "This was all my work. I can show you emails and everything. This bitch right here is taking all the credit. Here's my 2 weeks, hope she learns how to do her job." And it isn't why I out motherfuckers on a daily basis. It's as simple as asking them details related to the part of the work you did. Typically my bosses find it hilarious. US Army here. I was dating a girl whose father was dying of cancer and was at home in hospice care. I found out that she was stealing his morphine to get high. That's when I said, you know, this probably isn't the type of person I want to be with. Wanted to make plans with my at the time best friend. His response was, if nobody else wants to do anything that night, I guess we can. Was the final straw that made me just say fuck it, and stop the friendship. Been 4 or 5 years since that happened. Don't regret it one bit. I put in my 2-week notice at work to pursue a better opportunity. Things had been nothing but positive at that job, but it was time to move on. The next day at work, I get a meeting invite for what I expected to be an exit interview. I walk in, and HR and the corporate lawyer are there. The lawyer demands to know where I'm going to work, and starts shouting threats to ruin me with legal action for violating the non-compete agreement. I wasn't. At that point, fuck a smooth transition. I spent the next 2 weeks taking 3-hour lunches, chatting with friends in the halls and doing zero work. I had an ex-employer try to pull this on me, sans the lawyer. When I refused to tell them, they asked me how they were supposed to know whether or not I was going to work for a competitor. I politely explained that it wasn't my job to ensure they did their own due diligence. The boiler in my flat started leaking last week. I called the landlord and it took him 3 days to send a plumber. I turned off the hot water, but in that time we had a small electrical fire because the water from the boiler had leaked into the oven. It's been a week now. I haven't been able to have a good shower and I'm on my period, so I feel absolutely disgusting. The kitchen is useless because of the boiler and the fire, and I'm supposed to be at a really important thesis meeting over the next 2 days, but my landlord just called and said the plumber won't be able to make it until next week. Called my husband, we're moving out. Have you considered punching your landlord square in the nuts? Yeah. We're going to do that, but the legal way, with Shelter Scotland backing us up while we open an investigation into him, which could result in him being banned from ever being a landlord. Where we live, being without water or a means to cook your food is considered an emergency and is required to be repaired within 1 day of the landlord receiving written notice. The idiot responded to the email I sent him 5 days ago regarding this problem, basically saying he'll get to it when he can. According to Shelter Scotland, that's proof enough that he has not fulfilled his duties as a landlord. So the asshole is going to get it, but first we need to find a new place to live. When the man I had loved for years told me we were on hold, he informed me of the exact evening he was going on a date with some new girl and that he'd let me know by the end of the week if we were back on. Amusingly, he got offended when I told him I felt disrespected. The idea of a healthy adult relationship with this man is futile. Feels so good to be done with him. I had a friend in college who married her high school sweetheart straight out of high school. Senior year of college, she comes into class one day distraught. I asked her what was up. She said she felt like she hadn't lived enough since she'd only ever been with one man, and had told her husband that morning that she wanted to spend a year where they both saw other people, just to experience it, and after their year they'd move forward with their life and marriage. He said no, she insisted it's what she wanted, so he packed up his stuff and left. She couldn't figure out why he was so mad. XGF and I were on a break. Ended up at the same bar and I ended up giving her a lift home. I didn't want to come inside and she wouldn't take no for an answer. She refused to get out of my car for like an hour, screaming at me all the while, and only got out because she was going to piss herself. And, like, she did piss herself in the street a few minutes later. Fucking crazy. Safe to say we didn't get back together. When I came home and my son told me his stepmom boxed up his PlayStation while he was playing it so she could sell it. I was a broke college student and working part-time as a night janitor and full-time as a research assistant before having to go back to school in the spring. I needed the money to pay for tuition. After my first lease expired, I tried contacting a few places for a summer sublet. But no one got back to me in time and I had to live a few days in my car. But within a few days of me moving out, the app owners sent me their responses. At that point, I had already developed a system and was quite used to being homeless. So that entire summer, I just said fuck it. I'm done. And lived out of my car. I would shower once every 2 days at the university's lab shower and sleep in the unrestricted night parking spots. I work at a company that is literally the most poorly run, hostile shithole I've ever seen or ever even heard of. A few years ago an idiotic supervisor, but I repeat myself, spent 10 minutes screaming like a lunatic at our best engineer over something that wasn't his fault. The man put in his 2 weeks notice the following Monday, and was immediately escorted out of the plant by security like he was a convicted serial killer. At that point I realized just how sick our corporate culture is, and emptied my personal bag of fucks about this place. It's just a job. There will be no loyalty or extra effort from me. Escorting people out after they give their notice is pretty standard for a lot of positions, especially any that involve security or sensitive data. Whenever anyone at my company puts in their 2 weeks they are immediately escorted out because of policy, not any kind of maliciousness. It is unnecessary risk for the company to let them back in. This doesn't apply to most factory/food service/customer service jobs, but it applies to all kinds of programming/network/database/medical jobs. Jody, can I get these days off in December? I'm not in town, I need them off. It's only October, you have to wait until November to book them off. Okay, cool. November 1st. Jody, I need to book these days off in December. Sorry, a whole bunch of people already booked it off, I can't give you the days. It's the first day of the month and it's 9 AM and I am literally the first person to talk to you here. How the hell did people book days off? Oh, I took bookings last week because it was almost November. Oh. Okay. Hey Jody? I quit. Fuck you. First job in high school, I booked a short holiday away. Spoke to manager in work and she told me I could not have it off under no reason as the only person who could cover was also on holiday in another country. They walked into the store the next day. Spoke to them and they said yeah they could cover easily. Went back to manager and she still flat out told me no, so went fuck it. I'm done. Handed in my notice and went on that holiday. Don't bullshit your staff. Started coming in 2 to 3 hours early for the extra work that I was given. Hours were 10 to 6. I got a written warning for leaving when the bell rung at the end of the day because my manager didn't come in until 10 and assumed I wasn't putting in the extra effort. If you come into work early, no one ever notices. If you leave early, everyone thinks you're a slacker. O_O. 3 minutes into playing Flappy Bird when I died for the 65th time. Sorry, can't take you to ER because I have bad hair. Was all I needed to hear to understand that person is a piece of shit and need not have anything to do with her. When I was 16 I had my first job at a chain restaurant. Manager was a lesbian and she invited me on a date. Told her that I wasn't interested, and she proceeded to make work hell for me. I had vacation approved and planned for a while. Hotel was paid for, and the day before I was supposed to leave she tells me she changed the schedule and put me on a double in the middle of the week. I will also be fired if I take my vacation. Fuck it, I'm done. Walked into exam. Realized I had been up for 48 hours straight but hadn't studied. Turned around and walked out of exam. My wife and I started P90X a few years ago. After the first session I threw up. Not so bad, but the next day, I couldn't bend my arms because they were so sore and tight. I tried to get out of bed and just fell down. I couldn't wipe my ass, which was alright, because I couldn't put food in my mouth, either. We kept at it for 4 weeks until one session I turned to my wife, she was just standing still and crying. I was like, fuck it. We're done. Let's get a pizza. That's a tough program for beginners, if you were a beginner. My squad in the army did it for 6 months and it kicked our asses and we were already in good shape. We were in even better shape afterwards. There is a kind of prerequisite program for beginners called P90 which is less stressful. I hope you both found a more agreeable way to exercise. My old housemate used to tell us about his awful family and how messy/nightmarish they were. He wasn't the tidiest himself, at our place, but I figured he'd just picked up bad habits. I always felt really sorry for him about his family situation, so I tended to give him a bit of a pass. Fast forward to us moving out after a year, his parents come to help and his room is an absolute state. I cannot adequately describe how vile it was. I'm amazed he didn't have rats in there. When challenged on it, without missing a beat he swears blind that he'd been staying with his girlfriend, and that in the meantime I had moved into his room and trashed it, which obviously I hadn't. His parents went apeshit, and went to the landlord who believed them and took a cleaning fee out of my share of the deposit instead of his. I was so angry at the guy. I'd always stood up for him against his family/our other, pretty shitty, housemate, and then he decides to screw me out of £300. I think you missed an opportunity here. So what you're saying is that I own everything in that room? Yeah, your stuff is a total mess. Okay, I will clean it all out. I wonder what expensive things I left in there, and how much I can get at a pawn shop for them. Don't sell my stuff, man. Oh, so is it your stuff or is it my stuff? Yeah. 20 minutes into selling Kirby vacuums. First, they said customer support. Then they said product demonstration. Finally they said knock on people's doors and sell them vacuums. Nope. I found myself cleaning toilets in a McDonald's at 3 AM. I was only 18 but already graduated and really woke up to the fact that I had no plan at all. So I played D&D in college. There was this one guy. Everyone knows that one guy who forgets that people play games to have fun. But in any case, he wanted to DM, and we wanted to play an epic game, so we started at level 25. We built our characters and the very first encounter the DM threw against us was specifically crafted to be all but immune to our characters. Like, seriously, the most effective move any of us had was to turn into a giant red dragon and sit on one of them. Okay, technically grappling, but still. So after a grueling and unfun hour of trying to do anything against these monstrosities, my character unfurled his magical wings and flew home. And I packed up my stuff and just left. Apparently me leaving opened the floodgates, because shortly after I left, everyone else was like fuck it, this isn't fun. We're done here. Dude never got to DM again. Most recently, when one girl and I did 90% of a 45-page report which was supposed to be done by our group of 6. We ended up saying fuck it, breaking off and submitting our own report instead. Every shit essay I've finished at 3 AM. I was rushed into emergency surgery when it was discovered I had an ectopic pregnancy. I called my boss right before, told him what was happening, and he asked if it could wait for my day off. I just handed the phone to my fiancée and was rolled away. The next day I left the hospital and called work again for the HR number so I could start my leave paperwork. I said, "Hi John, it's Smygen," and he said, "You know you're 15 minutes late, right?" Yep, fuck thisville. I used to be Mr. Nice Guy, constantly helping people with homework, moving furniture, and general any help that they needed. Finally though, someone asked me to drop them off at the train station, was only supposed to take 20 minutes. Well, it turned out to take 3 hours and I missed a work obligation and got in major trouble for it. The kid did not even feel sorry or anything. At that moment I said, fuck it, I'm done. Now I have no problems saying no to people. It is really sad though how angry people get when you refuse to go out of your way to help them. I got hired by an engineering firm as a summer intern. Show up to the office on my first day of work and they said I was supposed to report to so-and-so at the warehouse a few miles down the road. So, I drive over to the warehouse and they start to go over what I will be doing all summer. Essentially they used the title engineering intern to attract hard-working and career-oriented people and have them do manual labor for stupid cheap. The first day of work all I did was pick up trash around the warehouse, clean out a supply closest, and clean up behind the mechanics who were absolutely terrible. I quit after 1 day. Fuck that shit. After spending far too long trying to convince someone that Game of the Year isn't a single award. Yes, Fallout 4 and Witcher 3 are going to be Game of the Year. No, it doesn't matter which one you think deserves it more. Fuck it, I'm done. Seriously though, Witcher 3 deserves it more. Divorced my husband of 12 years. Found out he was cheating on me. Decided maybe we could get past this if we tried and got counseling. I tried and did a bunch of shit to make things better for us, then got into his phone one day, didn't intend to, the perfect opportunity was just there in front of me. He was still professing his absolute heartbreaking love to that woman. And he was also chatting with 2 others who he told were so hot and was trying to set up dates with them. Forget that, if he could cheat on a woman he claimed to love, not just me who he said he was trying to love again, there was no chance of anything working. That was definitely my fuck it, I'm done moment. Divorcing his sorry ass was the best move I've ever made. It's a year now and I'm loving life. I hear he is alone and miserable. Well, I was typing this comment on Reddit and was at the grocery store yesterday and this chick ahead of me in the line didn't know what sales tax was. She started yelling at the checkout guy because it was $33 and now it's $36. Yeah, you stupid bitch, because $33 is the subtotal before sales tax. The guy tried to explain this to her but she made him re-ring everything in expecting it all to change. She started yelling again and I had a really bad headache and was tired so I said it's the fucking tax. And this cunt says excuse you without even looking at me. I fucking saw red. I only had a bottle of water and a pre-made salad so I take a $10 bill, put it on the counter and just walk out while calling her a fucking retard. The alarm went off and everything but no one stopped me. Fuck people. Fuck them right in the fucking bullet hole that needs to be in their head. Edit, for everyone saying the alarm didn't go off, it did. I live in a pretty terrifying city where shit gets stolen all the time so pretty much everything is faked. /r/that happened. Best friend of mine of 16-17 years just got married. I was his best man, was in desperate need of a job. I knew my work was looking for someone and the pay was double what he was making so I informed him, gave him my boss's number, email address and hand-delivered an app to his apartment for him to fill out, also offered to pick him up and drive him to my company office. Even gave my boys his number which he called 4 times. Never filled out the app, call in, emailed, or answer my boss's phone calls. We passed up a few other well-qualified people just so he can at least get an interview. They were going to give him the job on the spot. Got a call from him yelling at me for not following up for him and getting back to him about the job. His wife called me asking me why I didn't refer him to my boss, and at that point I got rid of his number and haven't spoken to him since. You can lead a horse to water, but can't make it drink. I gave up on my decade-long career as a civil/structural engineer about 6 months ago. It had been a long time coming, as my interest in the work itself had dwindled over the 10 years I'd been doing it, but my last job was particularly bad, chronically understaffed, 60-plus hour weeks, required to work weekends, and an owner who was a monstrous asshole. The last straw was when in an all-staff meeting he told me, "You're the consultant, do your fucking job." I'd only been there for 3 months at that point and was still familiarizing myself with port/marine engineering, as that wasn't what I'd done at my previous job. I don't even remember anything else that happened in that meeting. All I could think of was that I needed to talk to my wife about how I was going to be unemployed for a while. That night when I told her, she said, "If you're still there at 3 p.m. tomorrow, I'm going to be very upset." I quit the next day. When my boss screamed in my face for the 3rd time that week, walked out and never looked back. Now I own my own company and doing better than ever. Worked for a snack food company in Colorado. On my last employee review, received great accolades from the owner, and he stated that since I was the only buyer and the company was growing, they would hire someone to help and I would be the manager. 6 months later, the owner pulled me aside on a Wednesday and told me they hired someone that was starting on Monday and that I would be reporting to that person. I gave my notice on the spot. Later, I looked at that person's LinkedIn and she had 1 year, 4 months experience. I have 20 plus. I worked at a shitty call center but was the best employee, like I showed up to work and always hit my fucking metrics. The job was only worth it because I always made the bonuses, weekly death threats. Then I heard the rumor that they would be slashing bonuses when the company failed a sales project. I thought I would be above it because I was always number 1 on the metrics sheet. Then my boss told me that I missed a script line and that voided my bonus. I walked out the next day. I'd had to tell someone that their contractor wasn't doing shit. Said contractor decided to rake me over the coals. I informed my boss of the dust up and he blew me off. I was already pretty done but pushed me way over the edge. I found out recently said boss had been demoted from management. I laughed. Girlfriend cheated, told her I need space to think. Friend texts me a few days later to find out what happened. Get really into the details with my friend about my relationship with her. He keeps making weird excuses that justify her behavior, like maybe she's scared of how she feels about you and that's why she cheated. I end up super pissed, stop talking to him. Text him the next day to say fuck off. Turns out he didn't have his phone that night. My ex invited him to a party, stole his phone, locked herself in the bathroom and impersonated my friend to try and convince me to take her back. Nope. Sex with my wife. Put it in, then fuck it, I'm done. My roommate set off pepper spray in our room. I was a manager of a small department in bank administration when my boss gave me to the end of the day to submit the name of one of my employees to be laid off. I submitted my own name. Bastion play of the game. I worked with special needs kids in the high needs/extreme behavior class. I would get the shit kicked out of me daily. My husband stopped taking me out anywhere because people thought he was beating me. I requested several times to be moved to a different class for a year. They refused to accommodate me. One day I got called into a meeting and told I seemed stressed. I explained that yes, it was a physically and emotionally draining job and I was stressed. They told me I had 6 weeks to become less stressed or they would let me go. After 5 years of dedicated work for them, I quit 2 weeks later. Had a receptionist die in school once, so the next day they brought us into an assembly and announced it. My principal went to the hospital to pray over her, and keep in mind this was a Christian school. My Bible teacher gathered a few people in a circle and was shouting "Wake up!" in an effort to revive the person. I got the hell out of there and went home. She did not come back. She remained dead. Taking over shifts. I always take them over, but my colleagues think that it only needs to come from one way. 3 weeks after my dad died, a supervisor asked when I'd stop using that as an excuse for being distracted at work. I'm in sales. She wasn't my supervisor, but just didn't like me. I posted my resume on Indeed that night and had an interview within a month elsewhere. I've been at my new, awesome job for a year now. My friend told me that if I made it to her birthday party that she would pay for gas. Her offer. I wasn't going originally because I lived so far away. This is 400 miles each way for a one-night visit. She later told me that she wouldn't pay me what she said she would. So later when she asked for me to buy her something because she didn't have her money on her, I told her that she still owes me $50 for her birthday, and she bitches to her friend who was right there with me saying he wants me to pay him for coming to my birthday party. I have no problem loaning money to friends, but people who renege on a deal are the fucking worst. Never letting her get a penny out of me again. She's poor now, so she asks all of the time. Edit, I don't want to sound racist with poor spelling. I work at a uni, and we needed to develop a new system for handing out scholarships in my department that was much more transparent, as we had a history of favoritism and secrecy. I was on the committee charged with making a solution. We were working hard, had a few meetings, and while we're close to a final recommendation on how the process should work, I find out that one of the other committee members was still currently giving out some big scholarships the old way / secretly. Pissed me off. When my old boss told me OSHA was a scam and we didn't need to pay for anything those lawyers said, I was out of their next payday. I worked at a fashion magazine for about a year and would constantly get screamed at for the most ridiculous, uncontrollable things. The final fuck it moment, and I had these moments at least twice a week, was being berated in front of a closet full of wide-eyed interns about how I should have predicted that Italy was going to change their customs requirements, literally the day before I made the shipment, was not notified by anyone about the change. I was told that all customs agents and UPS employees are idiots, and that I should have been proactive and assumed that they were going to make these exact changes so that an ugly pink sequin dress could have arrived somewhere at 8 p.m. that day, instead of 8 a.m. the next morning. I marched right into our managing editor's office not 5 minutes later and quit. Felt so damn good. Liked what you saw? Hit like, subscribe and the bell icon for more crazy Reddit content.